Everyone knows Warren Haynes as the guy who plays guitar in a lot of bands. Government Mule, the Allman Brothers, Phil Lesh's various projects. But here's what most people miss. In 2004, Haynes did something that sounds physically impossible. He played roughly 36 shows with the Dead and 50 shows with the Allman Brothers Band. Same year. Two completely different bands, two completely different audiences, two deceased guitar legends whose shoes he was supposedly filling. And both bands told him the exact same thing. Whatever you do, don't try to sound like the guy who came before you. Which is insane when you think about it, because the guy who came before you in the Allman Brothers was Duane Allman, and the guy whose parts you're playing with the Dead was Jerry Garcia. These aren't just guitar players. These are mythological figures. And Haynes is out here in 2004 learning 150 songs for the Dead's repertoire while simultaneously holding down his spot in the Allmans. And everyone's telling him to just be himself. Right, no pressure. But to understand how Haynes ended up in this impossible situation, you have to go back to 1989. Because that's when he joined the Allman Brothers Band for what was supposed to be a reunion tour. Just a nostalgia run. Get the band back together, play the hits, go home. Haynes had been playing in Dickie Betts' solo band, writing songs with him, learning the Southern rock vocabulary. The Allmans came out of Macon, Georgia. He was from Asheville, North Carolina, grew up worshiping the Allmans, spent his 20s grinding it out with David Allan Coe on the country circuit. When Betts brought him into the reunited Allman Brothers in March of '89, Haynes figured it would be a short-term thing. It lasted 25 years. And here's what's interesting about those early years. Gregg Allman and Dickie Betts never asked him to imitate Duane. According to Haynes in a guitar player interview, they actively encouraged him to develop his own style, to bring his own personality to the music, which sounds generous until you realize what that actually means. It means you're on stage every night playing Blue Sky, one of the most iconic guitar songs in Southern rock history, and you have to figure out how to honor what Duane Allman created while simultaneously making it your own thing. And the audience, these are Allman Brothers fans we're talking about. They know every note Duane played. They've been listening to Live at Fillmore East for 20 years. They will absolutely call you out if you're faking it. So Haynes did something smart. Found his own tone instead of trying to copy Duane's Les Paul sound. Reworked the harmonies and the improvised sections. By the early 90s, he wasn't just filling a spot, he was co-leading the band. Helping them cut albums like Seven Turns and Shades of Two Worlds, writing songs, handling vocals, co-producing. The Allmans weren't a nostalgia act anymore. They were a working band again, doing marathon residencies at the Beacon Theater in New York, playing 100 shows a year. Because by March of 1997, Haynes and bassist Alan Woody were exhausted. The grind was too much. They left the Allmans to focus on Government Mule, the power trio they'd started as a side project. And for a few years, Haynes was out of the Allman Brothers completely. He was done with legacy bands, done with the pressure of living inside someone else's mythology. Except he wasn't done, because in 1999, Haynes started playing with Phil Lesh and Friends. And Phil Lesh had a very specific philosophy about the Grateful Dead's music. He did not want people trying to recreate Jerry Garcia's playing. He told musicians explicitly, don't sing like Jerry, don't play like Jerry, bring your own thing. Which sounds like the same advice Haynes got from the Allmans, but it's actually different. The Allman Brothers Band had composed sections, structured guitar harmonies, blues-based improvisation that returned to familiar themes. The Grateful Dead's music was conversational, modal, open-ended. Songs could go anywhere. Set lists changed every night. Improvisation wasn't about trading solos, it was about the whole band finding something together in real time. So Haynes had to learn a completely different musical language, and he was good at it. He played with the Phil Lesh Quintet, the Q, people called it, and co-wrote songs like Patchwork Quilt for their album There and Back Again in 2002. His funk and soul background gave him a rhythmic approach that worked in the Dead's improvisational framework. He wasn't trying to be Jerry Garcia, and then in August of 2000, Alan Woody died, and Greg Allman called Haynes and asked him to come back to the Allman Brothers full-time. So now, Haynes is back in the Allmans, playing 50-plus shows a year with them, and in 2004, the surviving members of the Grateful Dead, Bob Weir, Phil Lesh, Mickey Hart, Bill Kreutzmann, decided to tour as The Dead, with Jimmy Herring as additional lead guitarist, and they asked Haynes if he wanted in, which meant Haynes had to learn 150 songs, not approximately 150, exactly 150 at any given night, most of them written by Jerry Garcia and Robert Hunter. And this wasn't just learning chord changes, this was learning the arrangements, the transitions, the specific ways the Dead moved from one song into another, the way China Cat Sunflower always flows into I Know You Rider, the way Scarlet Begonias segues into Fire on the Mountain. And the Dead didn't use set lists the way normal bands do. Each member would call songs during the show, rotating who picked what. Every night was different. You had to know everything. Haynes did interviews during this period. There's one with the San Francisco Chronicle from June 2004 where he's trying to explain what his life looks like. He's rehearsing with the Dead at their warehouse in Novato, working on 3-part harmonies, rearranging material to fit the 3-guitar format. And simultaneously, he's on the road with the Allman Brothers, who are doing their own full touring schedule. Haynes called 2004 the busiest year of his life. Over 80 shows between the two bands. He's playing Blue Sky one night and Sugaree the next, Southern Rock one week, psychedelic improvisation the next, and both audiences have completely different expectations. Because here's the thing about Deadheads and the Allman Brothers fans. They're not casual listeners. Deadheads trade tapes, memorize set list variations, can tell you which version of Dark Star from which year had the best jam. They know when you're phoning it in. They know when you're trying too hard. And they definitely know if you're just imitating Jerry Garcia instead of actually understanding the music. Same with the Allman Brothers fans. These people have been going to Beacon Theater residencies for 15 years. They know every guitar lick, every vocal harmony. They will absolutely notice if you're not bringing something real to the table. And somehow Haynes pulled it off. There's a recording on the Internet Archive from August 8, 2004, The Dead at the Tweeter Center in Camden, New Jersey. Full show, 2 sets, 2 hours and 50 minutes. You can hear Haynes trading leads with Jimmy Herring, handling vocals on the encore where they play After Midnight into Broke Down Palace. 3 days later at Jones Beach on August 11th, he's singing Sugaree, one of Garcia's signature ballads, and he's not trying to imitate Jerry's phrasing, he's doing his own thing, more soulful, more direct, less ethereal. And it works. The crowd isn't booing, they're not walking out. They're accepting this version of the music because Haynes isn't faking it. But the toll of doing both bands simultaneously was brutal. Haynes has said in interviews that the schedule was unsustainable. You're not just playing shows, you're living inside 2 completely different musical structures, 2 completely different band dynamics, 2 completely different mythologies. The Allmans emphasized blues themes and composed guitar harmonies. The Dead emphasized open-ended transitions and group improvisation. With the Allmans, you had set arrangements and established roles. With the Dead, every night was a conversation where anything could happen. Haynes had to switch between those 2 modes constantly, and he had to do it while also managing Government Mule and his own solo career. And both bands were dealing with internal tensions that most fans didn't see. Dickie Betts had already left the Allman Brothers by 2000. There were conflicts, personality clashes, the kind of stuff that happens when a band has been together for 30 years. With the Dead, there were creative differences between Bob Weir and Phil Lesh. Haynes was navigating all of that, trying to honor the music while staying out of the politics. The Dead continued touring with Haynes through 2009. He played at President Barack Obama's Mid-Atlantic inaugural ball on January 20th of that year. Warren Haynes from Asheville, North Carolina, playing Grateful Dead songs at a presidential inauguration. But by the early 2010s, Haynes was starting to think about stepping away from the Allman Brothers. He'd been with them since 1989, with only that brief break in the late 90s. He had a family. He had Government Mule. He'd spent 25 years living inside Duane Allman's legacy, and he'd done it with respect and innovation. But at some point, you have to ask yourself what you're sacrificing to maintain someone else's mythology. In 2014, the Allman Brothers played their final show at the Beacon Theater on October 28th. Haynes and Derek Trucks both left to focus on other projects. Haynes said in a Premier Guitar interview that when he joined the band in '89, he never expected to stay for 25 years. It was supposed to be a reunion tour, 1 year, maybe 2, but the music pulled him in, and the responsibility of carrying that legacy kept him there longer than he'd planned. And here's what's wild about the whole thing. Warren Haynes spent a quarter century being told by 2 different legendary bands, don't imitate the guy who came before you, just be yourself. Which sounds like permission, like freedom, but it's also the heaviest possible burden. Because being yourself while playing Duane Allman's parts and Jerry Garcia's parts means you have to be good enough that your own personality is worth listening to. You have to bring something to the music that justifies your presence. You can't hide behind imitation. You have to stand there in front of audiences who worship the original versions and convince them that your interpretation has value. Haynes did that for 2 bands simultaneously, in the same year. Over 80 shows split between the Dead and the Allman Brothers. 150 songs in his head, switching between southern rock and psychedelic improvisation, between composed sections and open-ended jams, between 2 completely different musical philosophies. And he did it without losing his own identity in the process. Most people think of Warren Haynes as a sideman, a hired gun who plays guitar in other people's bands. But that's not what he was doing. He was bridging 2 of the most important lineages in American rock music, the Allman Brothers' Southern blues tradition and the Grateful Dead's psychedelic improvisation tradition. And he was doing it at a time when both bands were trying to figure out how to continue without their founding guitarists. In March of 2024, Haynes reunited with the Phil Lesh Quintet for Phil's 84th birthday shows at the Capitol Theater. 40 years after the Grateful Dead's peak, 20 years after that insane 2004 schedule, Haynes is still playing that music, still finding new things in songs he's performed hundreds of times, still refusing to imitate Jerry Garcia, still bringing his own voice to the tradition. And that's the real story. Not that Warren Haynes replaced 2 guitar legends, but that he carried 2 legacies forward by refusing to pretend he was anyone other